opportunity for Xi to lay out his grand vision. He's just coming off, as you pointed out, a very, very successful party congress. He's just had a little bit of a bromance with Donald Trump, the other main actor in the world. But I think what you're going to see here is two different visions for Asia and, I think, the entire world. Donald Trump is going to lay out his situational treaties, bringing up trade and how it has to be fair and Indo-Pacific, and using a lot of words which are advancing his view of the world. And I think Xi will be bringing out his, which is greater opportunity. All the things that we've been talking about, the Belt and Road, the AIIB, how you put these things together. On one hand, you have a lot of certainty being offered by Xi Jinping. He's saying, we're going to lay this out, here are the milestones, here's how we do it, here's how we're going to finance it. On the other side, you have Donald Trump, who will be talking about, there's a threat from North Korea. We're threatened by expansion of certain powers and things like this. So I do think this is a very important meeting, in the sense that both sides will lay out a clear choice for the rest of the world to follow, not only just this region.
Oh, yes, Professor.
But I think the one thing is certain, that people look for more realistic interest over there. So the deepened integration of Asia is really the popular notion by all the nations involved. And
since you've mentioned that, now we're watching live footage from Da Nang International Airport in Vietnam. Chinese President Xi Jinping has just arrived in the Vietnamese city to attend this year's APEC Economic Leaders meeting, and we can see that live footage from Da Nang City, and this is President Xi Jinping's plane, and he's expected to come out of the plane in a short while. And President Xi Jinping is scheduled to address other APEC leaders later in the afternoon session. And earlier, US President Donald Trump has already arrived in the Vietnamese city. And in the morning session, audiences listened to Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and Russian President Vladimir Putin. This year's APEC meetings also include a CEO Summit, where business leaders gathered to talk about entrepreneurship, innovation, and new business methods in the new era. So, Professor, you were talking about the integration of Asia. So I was specifically mentioning the particular part of Northeast Asia and Southeast Asia, and maybe South Asia as well.
Yeah, I think this is really a pan-Asia issue. There is a general consensus. People are looking more for economic gains by further integration, by freer movement of all economic elements. So people are going to benefit. But the difference might lie in what rule do we play by. Okay, now that there was TPP and there was RCEP and there was even TAP that was on the table, but which one should there be followed? And those smaller neighbors are really shopping for the best interest, looking at different roles, or even straddling between the two major economic giants, which is China and the United States. So now I think this APEC meeting is really going to be there to deliver some sort of assurance as, where should that really go? And plus that the geopolitical issue are there to serve primarily actually economic interest. However, strong you are in your rhetorics,
yes,
but it's real the interests that are deliverable
right.
that really matters.
Now let's cross live to Da Nang International Airport in Vietnam. Chinese President Xi Jinping has just landed in the Vietnamese city, and the reception ceremony is about to start. Chinese President Xi Jinping has officially arrived in the Vietnamese city of Da Nang, and you're watching live footage from Da Nang International Airport. Chinese President Xi Jinping has just arrived, and later in the afternoon he's going to deliver a speech at a 2017 APEC Economic Leaders meeting, and President Xi Jinping is receiving a warm welcome at the airport by Vietnamese officials. And the theme for this year's APEC gathering is creating new dynamism, fostering a shared future. And Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to APEC and Vietnam this time comes after the 19th CPC National Congress and the US President Donald Trump's state visit to China. And earlier in the day, US President Donald Trump also arrived in a Vietnamese city, and it's reported that Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and Russian President Vladimir Putin are also in the Vietnamese city right now. You're watching live footage from Da Nang City in Vietnam. Chinese President Xi Jinping has just arrived in the Vietnamese city to attend the 2017 APEC Economic Leaders Meeting. President Xi Jinping is receiving a warm welcome at the airport. And of course, CGTN will bring you a live coverage on Chinese President Xi Jinping's speech at the 2017 APEC Economic Leaders Meeting, which is expected to be held later in Friday afternoon local time. Chinese President Xi Jinping has arrived in the Vietnamese city of Da Nang, the host city of this year's APEC Economic Leaders Meeting. So, gentlemen, what do you think would be the key messages bring out by President Xi Jinping this time in Vietnam? Aina?
Well, I think it's, as I was saying before, Donald Trump will accentuate the threats. Xi Jinping will accentuate the opportunities. Not completely black and white, but I think the emphasis will be very clear. I think this meeting is a pause button while people consider their options, which way they want to go. I mean, obviously, I think Xi will be announcing something, because he always does. He doesn't come to these meetings empty-handed. He will have something in his pocket saying, this is a new initiative, and this is how we're going to go forward in a very concrete way. I'm not certain that Donald Trump has anything that he's going to be offering. I think he's, as I said, going to be accentuating the things that could be going bad with terrorism, with threats, and all those type of things.
And this leads to the theme of this year's APEC gathering, which is creating new dynamism, fostering a shared future. What kind of new dynamism is the region talking about, Professor?
Yeah, the regional integration provokes the dynamism, by working closer together. And on the other, they also mention about the changing landscape of the digital